Pinot Noir. Never has so much purple prose gushed forth from a single red grape. The pinings of the heartbreak grape's litany of lovers will leave for another time. But now let's take a dispassionate look at how this, ostensibly just another bunch of purple berries, becomes wine. Inevitably with Pinot Noir, you're, quite literally, in rarefied territory. Why? Because here's a grape that only works in cooler climates. It's an early ripener, which means in warmer parts, sugars shoot up, acidity droops down, and enticing flavours don't get a chance to develop. The result? Jammy, bland, lifeless wines. On the other hand, Burgundy's Côte de Nuit is the original Pinot paradise, but pockets of coolness, high latitudes, high altitudes, and breezy coasts offer hope of a happy hunting ground. Victoria in Australia has a few of these: Geelong, Gippsland, the Yarra Valley, Macedon Ranges, and here on the Mornington Peninsula. This is the Scorpo vineyard in Merrick's North. Planted in 1997, it's a north-facing slope, a bit of a sun trap, handy in this fairly chilly season. These vines are all MV6, the Pinot Noir clone most closely associated with the region. They're being hand-harvested early in the morning, the last week of March 2023. They're destined to become a single block Pinot Noir, that is to say, the wine will be made purely from this block. The idea is to express the personality and quality of these 26-year-old vines on this specific site from this growing season. These single plot wines are the pinnacle of the estate's production, which means, much as I dislike the term premium, this is a premium grape variety, premium region, and premium wine. So these techniques we're looking at are, well, premium. That said, this is a fickle, low-cropping grape that makes you work hard and has expensive taste in real estate. You're going to want to make something pretty smart from it and fetch a pretty penny too. So the kid gloves, red carpet treatment from here on in is fairly standard. That starts with the hand selection of the fruit in the vineyard. The grapes go from bucket to bin and then to the winery nearby. You could speed them along to fermentation, but the team opts instead for a 4-day cold soak or pre-fermentation cold maceration. The idea is that this gentler, aqueous as opposed to alcoholic phase of extraction draws its own spectrum of favourable phenolics, tannins, colouring materials and flavour precursors from the skins. The next stage is to get the grapes ready for fermentation. Because we harvested by hand, the bunches are intact. We have a choice here whether to ferment, either entirely or partially, as whole bunches, or to discard the stems. Like many of these things, whole bunch fermentation isn't a silver bullet. Its impact can be good, bad, or indifferent, depending on the wine and its author. There's no doubt it can positively influence flavour and texture via tannins and surprisingly diverse aromas, from flowers to botanical herbs and spices. This wine would ordinarily include a small portion of whole clusters. However, the chilliest summer of 2023 has persuaded the team to de-stem all of the fruit. The grapes, already screened in the vineyard, are tipped onto the sorting table where anything that slipped through the net is weeded out. It jiggles and jives its way to the conveyor and up to the de-stemmer, with whole berries deposited in one bin and the discarded stalks landing in their own pile. That brilliant green helps explain the whole bunch reservations. From here, the grapes go to the fermenter. The Chardonnay and Pinot Gris here are fermented in barrel, but those varieties are pressed before fermentation. That won't happen to the Pinot Noir because we still have skins in play. So an open vat, could be steel, wood, ceramic, terracotta, or whatever, is used. Temperature-controlled concrete fermenters are the go here. The material is slightly porous, so like an oak barrel, it allows light aeration. It tends to keep a relatively stable temperature. That's important as we're trying to be gentle here. We want the yeast to get busy and work steadily. Fast and furious is our foe. Concrete doesn't impart flavour, so it should respect the purity of the fruit. And, though it may well be psychosomatic, there seems to be a pleasant freshening rasp to the tannins that form in these vessels. Fermentation will be allowed to start naturally, i.e. with wild, indigenous, native yeast, whatever you want to call it. Please watch the Pinot Gris video for the pros and cons of that. Anyway, one hopes it'll be a smooth ride. It'll be prodded, sniffed and tasted several times over as it goes to make sure that grape sugars are being steadily consumed and that our little skin and juice ecosystem is a happy, sweet-smelling place. That mass of floating skins on top is known as the cap, and cap management is an important part of the process. We talked about aqueous extraction earlier, that pre-ferment cold soak. Well, now we have the alcoholic extraction, a more vigorous phase where phenolics, a term covering tannins, pigments and flavours, are drawn out of the skins. We want it to be thorough but gentle. In other words, we want layers, textures and intensity, and we also want balance and subtlety. We also want some oxygen in the mix to keep the ferment healthy and to dissipate heat and prevent things from going haywire. A couple of techniques will be used. Pigeage or plunging is where the cap is punched down into the juice by hand, and they'll be pumping over, where juice drawn out of the tank from below will be lightly hosed over the top of the skins. All up, this wine will spend about 20 days on skins. That includes the cold soak, alcoholic fermentation, and a short period of post-ferment maceration. The wine will be tasted until everything seems perfectly poised and we move to the final stage, pressing. Again, unlike whites that have their unfermented juices pressed out, here we have both wine and skins in play. The wine is drawn off first. It's hard to say what percentage of the final quota comes out here, but our best guess for this tank was around 80%. It's run straight to a tank. The other 20% will come from the skins. They'll be reunited once the skins are pressed. First, the skins have to be scraped out. Got to be a bit mindful here. The process of fermentation converts the sugars to alcohol and carbon dioxide. It doesn't take much for that CO2 build-up to seriously harm the poor sod who digs out the vat. But from where I'm standing, the smell is heavenly as the skins come out and are fed to bins. Next, they're taken to a pneumatic bladder or airbag press. The high-precision equipment allows us to choose the rate and force of the cycle. We want the juice, yes, but we've come too far to risk bitter flavours or astringent tannins leaching into the wine by applying too much pressure to the skinsy, pippy mass. Nice, clean, fragrant Pinot Noir is what we want to see flow out. That's what we're getting. Look at that colour. So those soft pressings rejoin the free run in tank where they hang out and settle. Shortly after, it'll all be sent to oak barrels for maturation. Size, age, and even origin can vary and have different effects. Australia's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir growers head to the oak forests of France, generally for barriques holding 228 litres or 500 litre puncheons. Oak maturation has a number of benefits for a wine like this. Over time, it's naturally clarified, the colour stabilises, tannins soften, and flavours evolve and increase in complexity. Some oak flavour, nutty, creamy, spicy, will also round out the Pinot too, so a proportion of the barriques will be new. Different treatments suit different wines, but the aim is to have the oak as a complement, not the main event. Leave that to the fruit. Some 20% of the oak used for this wine will be new. It will spend about 10 months in barrel. During that time, it will, like all red wines, undergo malolactic conversion. This is where harmless lactic acid bacteria, naturally present in most cellars, convert harsher malic acid to softer lactic acid. The wine will also be racked, moved from barrel to barrel, following malolactic conversion. This clarifies and aerates it by taking it off deposited solids, preventing a potentially stinky scenario from developing. The barrels also need regular topping up, the process of refilling to replace wine lost to evaporation. If they aren't kept full, acetic acid bacteria may use the oxygen in the barrel's headspace to turn this stuff into vinegar. At the end of this maturation process, this particular wine will be bottled without any fining or filtration. It will emerge as medium-bodied Pinot Noir, about 13.5% alcohol, no doubt replete with signature red berry and cherry fruit plus layers of earth, nuts, smoke, spice and other stuff. And that is how those grapes picked that autumn morning will emerge looking a little something like this, and hopefully fit to inspire purple prose all of its own.